This week, I started experiencing symptoms of vertigo from what was probably an ear infection, which was another moment out of many when I had to step back, slow down, and stop doing the work that I wanted to do. It's hard, after a summer of being unable to work, to feel constantly held back by something. I tried to do what I could around the house, but even in this, my productivity was reduced, and I focused more on creating ideas than on creating actual products. In moments like these, I always strive to remember that life is not individual moments, but a composition of many pieces. It's easy to experience a period of reduced productivity and associate this with worthlessness, as though my identity and humanity are rooted in my present success. Not only is my identity rooted in God, not in my own production, but also my ability to create is a gift that fluctuates with life's seasons rather than a constant. My current state is not necessarily who or where I will be forever and ever. Amen. 2 years ago, I got really sick for a while, and I really had to grapple with my concept of self in a situation where I couldn't prove through action how valuable I was. A year ago, I wrote out how I would explain what this feels like to my counselor if I were a client, to understand why it mattered so much to me that I was always productive. It's based on the first technique I learned in grad school, which is to find the root of someone's fear through the basic question, what does this belief say to you about you? I wrote, I look at trees dropping their leaves piece by piece until they are left bare. They no longer provide shade for the summer sun, nor food for our tables, nor even beauty to behold. All they do is drink the water of the earth and remain motionless as though dead. If I were a tree in the fall, I would feel such anxiety for the future. To live a season without purpose, without productivity, without beauty, this is very nearly the worst I can imagine. If that tree was human, we would not carefully tend it until spring so that its blooms could bring goodness into the world. We would chop it down and replace it with a springtime tree, who we would keep until its fall and then replace. And what would it say to me, about me, if I were a tree in the fall? It would say that I must prove my worth every second of every day or be chopped down and replaced. And what would that say to me about me? It is impossible to prove my worth in this way. I would never succeed. And if I cannot prove my worth, I must be worthless.
Stay awake every night just to catch one more glimpse of your skin. When I look at the way you sleep, I know I'm home. I believe I can change, be the man just for you. Like a flash of the future, I see our sons and daughters too. No tomorrow, spin your sorrow, let the games begin. Reach out your bed, come out ahead, don't dwell within.
I get into these phases where I get obsessed with a thing, and for a really long time I was obsessed with drawing suns. That was all that I wanted. I wanted everything yellow. I wanted all my weavings to be yellow and blue. As you can see, I had my Sunshine series because I just got obsessed with sunny days and brightness and joy. And for whatever reason, and perhaps because this is the nature of life, I recently have become obsessed with mushrooms. I just want to draw them and paint them, and I want to weave their colors and create color schemes that are little mushrooms popping up out of the forest floor. I think in August and September we start to see a lot of mushrooms, depending on where you live, of course, but I know back when I was in the Pennsylvania area, when I would go for hikes at this time, you would see all of the leaves, the brown leaves covering the forest floor. They hadn't all fallen yet, of course, because it's still way too early for that, but you would start to see white mushrooms popping up and the logs covered with moss that had little just like sprinklings of white mushrooms decorating them. And I've just been really pleased with the thought of mushrooms. I'm not sure what it is. It might be a recent, shall we say, decline into cottagecore. Maybe decline's not the right word. Progression into a similar obsession with the cottagecore aesthetic. But I think there's also just that natural transition of life from really vibrant summer days, sunshine, into the rainy fall season. And it's not at all fall yet, but it's coming. And the late summer rainy season is one of my favorites. It's starting to cool off, but it's not cold. It's not pumpkin season yet, but it's still changes in the air. And that's what's been really inspiring me recently, that light smell of changes in the air. So that's why I've been doing a lot of mushrooms recently, and that's what my next series is going to be based on, is the idea of change. And sometimes change looks like decay, but decay isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes, the log has to decay for something new to grow there. Decay has its place in the ecosystem, and it has a place in our lives. You have to give things up to have things. There is no such thing as never sacrificing or never, just having to move on. And that's kind of nice to just say, like, I'm letting this go. I'm moving on. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I have an itch for decay right now, followed by further life. It's intriguing. And I mean, mushrooms count as life. We disregard mushrooms as life sometimes. We just call them decay, but by nature they are a living being. Maybe not being, but a living thing. And that's cool and exciting. And while I'm not about to grow little house mushrooms, although I would, if I felt like I could do that without it getting out of hand. I forget where I was going with this. I just got obsessed with the idea of little potted mushrooms. But my husband would never allow that. Anyway, I'll stick with painting the mushrooms and enjoying them and letting things be slow here in late summer. Motifs like autumn's leaves and the growth of mushrooms remind me that life is not always filled with conventional productivity or beauty or the perfect plans we fill our bullet journals with. Even a tree in winter creates a home for woodland animals, and without fungi, the soil would be so much less fertile for spring. And I cannot control when my seasons of change occur. I can't skip over autumn and force myself into spring. I can't just change my calendar to March so I can plant my little seedlings. What does it matter to a tree if the calendar says it's October? It would only know by the changing of the air. Maybe summer was longer this year, or winter more cold. You cannot fit a living, breathing, changing season into boxes on a page.